You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
And away we go. The Maple Leaf season now freshly underway. It is October 10th. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. What's going on, Rosie? How are you, bud? Yeah, the Sheldon Keefe revenge game, but this happens a lot in October. I will say this. I know the Leafs don't score a goal for the first time in 252 games, including playoffs, but I rather that than being hammered 6-0 or 5-0. Like there's a couple scores around the league where you're like, holy hell, what happened there?
Yeah, those Oilers, man. I don't know. Like, I was happy for the Oilers. I was on their side cheering for them. Way to go! Let's see someone do it. But I think they got something special out of Skinner. They got something special out of their D. I just don't know. I mean, they're a great team, but people are talking about like unanimously picked the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. I'm just like, I don't know that they can put that magic together. I thought that was kind of a special run for them, but another slow start for them. They're no stranger to that. They're up and down. They're yo-yos. They're very reminiscent of some Maple Leafs of the past and possibly present.
There's some demons certainly there, but they did, however, go to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. But around the league, you look at even the Pittsburgh Penguins. What a tough start for them, considering the offseason. I wasn't crazy about it. Crosby signs the extension, and they get hammered by the New York Rangers 6-0. Colorado, like a lot of question marks about their crease, and they let 8 goals in the first game. But it happens a lot. Like if you recall last October, it was absolute chaos. I think the opener for the Maple Leafs was like 6-5, wasn't it?
Yeah, things happen. I mean, these guys are trying to get their footing and try to understand who they are. So you could see it. On one hand, you think they should be prepared. On the other hand, they don't really have the reps and they're not really in a groove. So you could look at it either way. And if you want to justify or tear someone down, you can take either road.
First and foremost, I got to say you and Zach Phillips put on a show in the first TLN After Dark of the season. Just got to chill out a bit. There's 81 more to go. I know it was a tough start for this team. There was some positive moments, some negative moments as well. But I wanted to start the show off on a light note. So for anybody who has tuned in for the last 2 years, we love you. It's season 3 of Leafs Morning Take. You've become familiar with Jay Rosehill's disdain for one LeBron James. And I came across a tweet that indisputably would have Jay Rosehill losing his mind. LeBron James tweeting on Wednesday, "Can someone please explain to me why we're getting on a plane and heading to Milwaukee for one preseason game? Question mark, exclamation mark, question mark." Your response, Jay Rosehill.
More of the same. Like, if you need any more reasons to think that this LeBron James guy is a complete dickhead, like here it is. Talk about being detached from reality. Like, people are literally on the roofs of their homes trying to get saved as 10 feet of water, completely eviscerates entire towns in Florida and the Carolinas. People are at war right now. There's civil unrest. There's so much going on. People can't even pay their bills. Inflation, the cost of living is going crazy. And this dickhead who's made $480 million riding on a plane from LA to Milwaukee on a private frickin' jet, he is tweeting out to the public like he's going to get some kind of sympathy. Like, talk about a complete detachment from reality. He is, and he's like this veteran and an icon. You could go talk to the powers that be at the NBA and try to make some change that way if you feel that strongly about it. But throwing out a tweet as you're sitting on a private jet about how bad your life is, he is such a dickhead, man. I just can't believe anyone likes that guy. And to try to be like the top of your sport and this icon. Can you imagine Sidney Crosby sitting there last week going, "Yeah, I gotta ride a private jet from Pittsburgh to Colorado. What's going on with this in my life? Like, can anyone believe this?" Like, he's such a dickhead, man. I can't stand him, and I don't get why he doesn't get torn apart publicly more often.
Tell me how you really feel. But you talk about nepotism. I can't recall a case where somebody strong-armed their kid into the league. So that's the underlying story of this Thursday night. So they're playing Milwaukee. Bronny and LeBron will be together for the first time ever on an NBA court. And he tweets that out. Like, that was weird about me. Like, wouldn't you want to be excited? You're going to play with your kid for the first time ever in the NBA.
I know, man. Is that kid like I'm not too dialed into the NBA,
He's
but
not
like
good.
the kid's not that great. I don't think he's, worthy of being in the league or worthy of being on the Lakers. I saw one highlight package, must have been preseason, but he didn't get a single point and he's out there most of the game. It's I guess you got that much power. You can get your kid in the league, but you can't control your preseason flight schedule. Sorry, LeBron, you can't have it all, buddy.
A little exercise to get Jay Rosehill going here on the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Again, great job last night with Zach Phillips. Game number 2 in the second half of the back-to-back coming up tonight. The Sheldon Keefe revenge game. So make sure to check out TLN pregame as well as TLN After Dark with Zach Phillips. I'm guesting on the show tonight. And I hope the theme continues from last year where every time you guested they lost, I would go on, they would win.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I'm a little more fired up last night. I'm kind of chilled out today about the whole thing. It seemed like, all the buildup and excitement for game one and to kind of have that. I don't know if you want to call it a stinker or what, but it's just you just had so much higher expectations than what went down in that game. But again, one game, they're moving on. I love the quick turnaround here. They can put it behind them with a good performance tonight.
Yeah, you blew your load pretty quickly. I was a bit shocked at that. The first game of the season. I thought you would ease into it. We did joke about it yesterday. If the Leafs don't win, you could have some spicy takes, but you guys got right after it. And maybe it's a triggered thing. It's something, and we'll talk about, we're going to break down the first game here. Just there was bits and pieces where you remember the Sheldon Keefe era and you're like, the power play. Like it wasn't a lethargic effort, but it was like a met effort from the Leafs standpoint where it's like, I've seen way too many playoff games like that, playing to the perimeter, not
Yeah.
wanting to get to the dirty areas. We're going to break it all down here. If you got a super chat, please write in comments, concerns, a question for us. We'll take it all. We mentioned yesterday, we're going to unveil it in the next couple weeks, but we're going to be donating some of that money to charity. So it's for a good cause. We love you all here in the chat, and we look to get more interactive with the chat as the show goes on this year at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. If you run a restaurant, you're too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing and new locations opening. You need to get more customers and keep them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Square, because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So when you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to squareup.com/ca/en/campaign/big-in-RST to see why Square is big in restaurants. So Craig Berube makes his Maple Leafs debut behind the bench. First and foremost, how do you think he ran the show?
I mean, the difference that I saw was, he kept the lines consistent. He kept rolling them and trying to get something going. He wasn't, picking guys apart and putting them on different lines and breaking everything up, which I think in the long run is a smart play. I think that's something that's going to serve them well down the road. Again, a coach and how he needs to put his fingerprints on a team, I don't think you're going to see a whole hell of a lot in 60 minutes. But my only thing with them being a little bit flat last night, I mean, yes, they got a ton of shots, and I look at this morning, I'm like, well, that is an NHL record for a kid to, have that many shots and turn them all away on opening night. Fine. I get it. My gripe last night was it was kind of deceiving, the shot count, because I didn't think that there were that many high quality scoring chances from the Leafs. I didn't think they penetrated the zone very well. I didn't think they had numbers very often. But the highlight pack this morning makes the game look like they did get goalied, makes it look like on any other night they would have had that win, or at least got it into overtime, posts and crossbar. Fine. When you watch the full 60, it didn't look that close. And I mean, I just kept reminding myself that they're supposed to be heads and shoulders above this team. And the only thing that I could think of was, maybe they're adjusting to this new style of playing. And I hope that's the case. I hope Craig Berube has implemented something different, because something needs to change in that locker room. Obviously, a different way of playing, a different mindset needs to be, apparent this year if they're gonna have more success. So I hope that we can chalk it up to that. They're getting used to the system. They're getting used to where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to play. But I did say last night, if there was no coach behind the bench and no one said anything to that group of players, I think they could have, would have been expected to come out and have a bit of a better performance than that. But these things happen. Move on. At least we get another shot at her tonight.
You're right. A lot of perimeter shit I felt in general. And how many times have we seen that in recent memory where it's like, yeah, the shot volume is there. And this is not disparaging like the effort of Samuel Montembeault. I thought he was really good. The biggest save coming with like 2 seconds left in the game on Austin Matthews. Like that by far was the Leafs' best opportunity. And thanks to Sportsnet for the video, as you see on your screen right now. But I don't think it was like overly difficult. Like it didn't feel like they got to the dirty areas where you need to score goals or where you have to be to score goals in this league. And we've been talking about that for a couple of years now, Rosie.
Yeah, they just didn't have numbers, like on the rush with speed, moving north together. It was like it kind of seemed like individual efforts, like a guy will kind of break through and try to bust wide and little pops of single player here where they're usually outmanned or maybe they beat one man and then it comes down to kind of a one-on-one play coming off the half wall or something fine. But it just wasn't that quality penetrating chances where line mates are using each other and having that chemistry to make the plays and overwhelm the defense. It didn't look like that. And I mean, again, it's okay. It's game one, but with the firepower that's on there, I don't know. You look at some of the chemistry these other teams have, and you could argue that they don't have as high end or talented of a roster or as much skill. And you'd think that they could, come up with more this group. And it's nothing more apparent than their power play. Like are you
Oh,
telling me that that power play, like those players can't figure it out? They've all been power play specialists their entire lives, and they just look lost. Like they're almost running into each other. They're crossing each other. They're going against the grain. There's just zero chemistry, right? And every time a chance gets made, it's just one man making an attack in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, there's none of that. You look at some of the passing plays that have been made in the couple of games that have been played so far. I mean, the Jets were moving it around so well, passing the puck. They were playing as a unit, unbelievable. You don't see any of that on the Leafs. Like, there's no tic tac toes.
no.
There's nothing like that going on. I just don't see the chemistry yet, and I'm really, hoping and holding my breath that comes to fruition here this year because something's got to change, man. These guys got to start playing as a group. It's what matters in the playoffs. It's why they keep coming up short, and you can, go into details on that as much as you want. But at the end of the day, they don't play as a team, and that's something that just has to be addressed.
On the power play, this dedication to those five singular players is insanity to me. Like I get it. It's one game every year. This power play is top 10 in the league. But how many different guys have had a chance to run this power play from Manny Malhotra to Guy Boucher, Mark Savard, and others? And it's like last time I checked, you could only reinvent the wheel so much. Like I know they're trying to do their job on the broadcast, but don't tell me about face-off plays. Like that's going to make a difference. Zone entries. Like it just does not work. I'm sorry, Rosie. It's just so predictable. It doesn't work. I understand it's one game. These guys are so damn talented. They're going to get their cookies. They're going to score their goals in the power play. The one thing I didn't understand from the game last night, if there's a conscious effort to spread the wealth ice time wise between PP1 and PP2, it makes absolutely no sense to stack the top power play unit. It seems like the best of the rest on PP2. There's no chemistry. These guys have never played together. I don't think there's a true center. Like to me, it'd make too much sense to bump John Tavares down to PP2 to have that center who wins draws and just disperse it a bit more. Like if you're going to split it up, then why would you stack one unit?
Yeah, it seems like if you are going to share the wealth on the 2 minutes, that you would have a little bit evenly matched and weighted units.
Yeah.
Again, it's very early. They want to see what they've got going on. Make decisions
But
later.
what do you need to see? What do you need to see from PP1? We've seen this for 10 years now. Like what are they looking for?
Wow. I mean, I'm just talking from Craig Brube's
Yeah.
point of view. Like he needs to kind of get his eyeballs on it, see what's working, see what's missing, see where the deficiencies are, and then make adjustments accordingly. And that's probably what he's doing right now. And he wants to see that number one PP and see how much jam they have, but then also give some time to the second one to see where they're at. But if you're gonna go long term with splitting them up and trying to give that, a minute shot a piece, then yeah, I think that the plan would be to spread the wealth out a little bit more. And maybe there's too many captains on that PP1, not enough soldiers, like there's too many guys trying to QB it, too many guys trying to be the guy. That's all I can think of. But it's like they get in their mind, they're making this play, and it does not matter if it's taken away or if there's a man in their lane, they just force it anyway. Same things with their entries. It's just like, well, this is what we're doing, and we are not, wavering from that no matter what the defense does. And they just get tunnel vision sometimes. And, I'm certainly not a power play specialist, but I can see what it looks like from afar. And they just don't have any chem, and no one knows what the other guy's doing out there. It's kind of lost right now. And I mean, that's never been more apparent than in the playoffs. It was absolutely abysmal. It's probably the reason they didn't get to the second round. And it's just unacceptable when you load a team up with this much offensive talent to have a PP that's that dysfunctional.
It's like they try to pass the puck into the net. Like, you're being too cute, you're being too pretty, and you can translate this to the rest of the game and the rest of the team, where you have so many guys on that roster, namely on PP1, who can shoot the puck. Just put the puck on net. Don Cherry always said it. Good things happen when you put the puck on net. And for some reason, they do not want to simplify that power play. We're doing loop-de-loops and drop passes and crazy, wacky zone entries. Like, just put the puck on net. And again, I'm no power play specialist, never played the game at a high level, but I've never seen bad things happen from putting the puck on net, Rosie.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to know when you're putting it on net and who's putting it on net and where everyone else is going and what you hope to achieve from getting that. Are you getting screens in front? Are you looking for tips? Are you looking for rebounds? Like, have the personnel in order if that's going to be your MO. I think these guys, in their minds, they're higher skilled and have more ability to run sweet looking power plays than to just chuck pucks on net like a meathead like me would only be able to do. So maybe they're reluctant to do that. And I don't know what this new power play is supposed to be, but I mean, you got to give them some time for some growing pains. I mean, I see in the chat and on Twitter, like, Brube wasn't the answer. It's like, what job do you get, hired or fired on day one? Like, seriously, any job in the world, is day one the deciding factor of whether you're meant to be there or not? That's not fair in any realm of the world, certainly not professional sports. So, as fired as up as I was last night too, I thought the game and the performance was pretty unacceptable, but I'm not calling for any major changes going on. I'm just disappointed that one performance went that way when I figured they'd be more prepared. Simple as that. Doesn't mean I'm I'm looking for major changes after 160-minute effort or non-effort.
How much credit would you give Montreal? Like, a lot of perimeter play. Was that self-inflicted, or was that Montreal playing their D to a T? Because I mean, if you recall, a couple years ago in the playoffs, they played that same type of passive style. I thought the second half of the game, the Leafs controlled play. They had the puck a lot. Montreal didn't get many opportunities, but again, everything was to the perimeter and not much in front of Montembeault. And more times than not in this league, if the goalie can see it, he's going to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, they did a pretty good job. They seem to play well together. They don't have a lot to lose. They're younger guys. They're up and coming. They don't have the weight of the world and tons of pressure and expectations on them this year. Everyone's talking about the rebuild year and whatnot, but I think a lot of those guys in that room would be a big fan of Marty St. Louis. The way he coaches, he seems to be inspiring and gives guys confidence and hope and belief, and that's a big thing with a young group that is trying to find their way and figure out who they are and try to get better every day. And they seem to play pretty well together. They came up with one goal. That's usually not enough to get the job done in the NHL, but on that specific night it was. They turned enough to the side. They allowed the chances against to not be high quality enough to get by their goalie. Yeah, I think it was a little bit deceiving if you didn't watch the game. When you look at the shots, you think the Leafs absolutely dominated and peppered the hell out of them and couldn't get a single break and got absolutely goalied. I mean, I think that's only true to a degree. I didn't love the chances and the penetration to the tough spots from the Maple Leafs. It just didn't seem like they dissected them at all or spread them out or got them out of position. And it was kind of, not easy, but they just kind of cruised their way to a 1-0 victory. And it was just pretty disappointing when you think those teams are really supposed to be at different points in their development.
Personally, I'm happy this streak's over. If you're just tuning in, first time since November 20th, 2021, a span of 252 games, Rosie, without being shut out. It was bound to happen at some point in time. Very Leafy that it happens in the first ever game under Craig Berube, though. I will say that.
Yeah, it's the Leafs way to doing things. Do it crash and burn in a big way, and it's not a huge deal. It would have been nice if that just happened on a March 2nd, but it was opening night. Craig Berube's debut, Austin Matthews' first game with the C on his shoulder. Whatever, it is what it is. It's kind of a meaningless thing. It was a nice feather in their cap for a while and showed that they're a high offense team, but things don't last forever. It's just unfortunate and pretty Leafy that it went down in the way it did, but not the end of the world. Move on.
Hey, a bright spot in this game, Anthony Stolarz thrust into action, of course, with the Joseph Woll news on Wednesday. 26 saves in his Maple Leafs debut. I think you tweeted it out. It could have easily been 4-0 in the first period. I thought Stolarz was fantastic all night long, and the only shot that beat him was a great play in the shot by Caulfield there.
Yeah, for sure. He looked fast. He gets in a position. He sees the puck well. He's got good reaction. I was very impressed with Stoli. The way he plays, I kind of remembered. I've played with him for a couple of years, and he's got that quick pad that comes out. He's big and large, takes up a lot of the bottom of the net, and he's pretty quick reactionary wise for a big goaltender. He's a big, tall kid, and he looked solid out there. It's nice to have. I think Joseph Woll can absolutely be that guy. But if he's not in net, it's nice to have a secondary guy who's not kind of struggling or looks hesitant. He looks confident in there, and that's a huge start for him being in this market. So obviously, if things aren't going well for Joseph Woll, whether it's injuries or play or whatever, it's nice to have a confident and capable goaltender back there, and it's by all accounts a good start for Anthony Stolarz in Toronto.
That's exactly it. And I mean, don't get it twisted. Joseph Woll banged up. I think there's opportunity there. Like if Stolarz continues to demonstrate consistency and play at that level, he almost forces himself into the number one spot. Like there's no concrete decision or thought process that suggests that Joseph Woll comes back with whenever that is and he's the number one guy. I think the battle's open now, Rosie.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's going to be out for at least a week and then you're going to tread lightly with him coming back and not like put the whole load on him. So, I mean, there's easily a couple of weeks here for Anthony Stolarz to be the guy. And if he's cooking like he is, and if he's doing everything you could possibly ask, then, you know, I don't think you really need to put a shelf and say this guy's on top. Now this guy's on top. It's whatever, man. If you got 2 weeks of a goaltender playing hot, you're going to kind of lean on him a little bit, and he's going to have the crease. And just with the natural movement of the season, that's going to kind of change, and the other guy's going to get his opportunity and see what he does with it. And goalies have really rough seasons where they get injured, they can't seem to get back in the crease. When they do, they're not really in a groove, and they can't seem to find their confidence, and they maybe drop one, and then it's easy to go back to the other guy. And you got to wait and be patient and take advantage of your opportunities. And right now this is an opportunity for Anthony Stolarz, and he's harnessing it and doing well with it. And you don't expect that to change overnight just because Woll's better. Obviously, with him being injury prone, they're gonna kind of tread lightly, but there's going to be a time where it's Woll's net again, and they're going to go back and forth. And I think that's a good thing. It's what we anticipated this year. I think that if Woll can get healthy, there's going to be a substantial amount of time where he's the number one. It's his crease, and he's the guy that everyone looks to, unless some kind of disaster happens where he just cannot get anything going. And, I think for him, the biggest thing is getting a substantial amount of games kind of in a row, or where he's the guy. And yeah, you take your odd day off and maybe don't play back to backs, but he needs to get, those months in place where he's the guy and you find a rhythm, because he's really never had that in his career, where he can just be the dude and play some consistent, substantial hockey between the pipes. He's looking for that desperately, and it's never going to happen if he can't stay healthy.
Many thanks to Vindictive Raider for the super chat. Habs were using the small box to push the Leafs outside the zone. It worked. Leafs will adjust. I think this game is a lot about adjustments, but I do have to give Montreal a bit of credit, and we've seen it in the past. Marty St. Louis, specifically as the head coach, really limit the time and space of the Maple Leafs and make it difficult for them. I thought they did a pretty good job of that and kept the Leafs to the perimeter, but along those notes, how many times have we seen that in the playoffs? You just have to find a way to get in front and get to the dirty areas. And it didn't feel like the Leafs were, had that on their mind last night.
I know, it was like a playoff game where you have these high expectations, and you think they're ready, and you expect them to do what they need to do, and they just can't find it. They just spin their wheels, and they're kept to the outside, and their chances are kind of ho-hum chances. And the more time and a bit of chances and shots that go on, the more frustrating, grippy of the stick you get, and the more tight the fans get. And it's like, come on, I just can't get anything going. And hence the shutout. They never scored a bloody goal in 60 minutes of play with all those players against the Montreal Canadiens, who are kind of in the bottom 5 of the NHL. It's just not a good look, not a good start. But shit happens in this league, and it's closer than you would think, and any team can win on any night. So it is what it is. Like, there's nothing to do for that group but remain positive, chalk it up to a night that didn't go their way, and move on to the next, and keep building and keep working. And I think with a new coach, you're going to have to work more than you have in the last couple of years. You're going to have to focus more and pay attention and study a little bit more and really focus on what needs to be done and what the changes are that the coach is trying to implement, and try to get them, to be active in the games. It's not easy. It doesn't happen at the drop of a puck. So if that is the problem, I'm okay with it. Like, let's make these changes now and get this team to a better place.
JC writes in, I'm definitely tuning in for Rosie tonight if the Leafs lose. You're not going to hear Rosie tonight. As I mentioned off the top, it's going to be me guesting on the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips. You can hear Rosie and his thoughts on this Devils game coming up tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time for the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Tammy, thank you so much for the super chat. No cohesiveness and sense of urgency as a team. Very well said. Don't forget, keep those super chats coming at the Leafs Nation 401 here on YouTube. Like and subscribe, please. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Rosie, are you surprised that Reeves and Jack-Eye didn't go? I think it was in the second period. There was a moment it felt like Jack-Eye turned over to Reeves and said, okay, let's do this. And Reeves sort of turned away. What'd you see there?
Yeah, I mean, my kids were doing some stuff, and I just looked over and I saw them on the ice together, and then I saw Jack-Eye open up and get the wide arms, and it's the universal sign for, are we going to do this or not? And Reeves acted like he wasn't even there, like completely ignored him. I tweeted that as kind of like, wow, that's surprising, because they just went down 1-0, and like a pussy, I had to delete it because about 20 people were like, he was out there for 40 seconds. I was like, God, I guess I didn't watch the whole shit. Of all guys, I should know, but yeah, no reason for him to go right there. So totally understandable in that specific situation. But when you have the hype of opening night, and you had the length of the pregame ceremonies and whatnot, it's hard to stay focused and hard to stay warm. You go down unexpectedly 1-0, and you're trying to not let the team's building take over momentum wise. I thought it, like, what better time would there possibly be for Revo to go over and find that guy and say, now's the time, let's go, try to stop that building in its tracks, hit the reset button, get his team on their feet, get the momentum back, and drop the puck with a fresh slate. I thought for sure, like, that's his job. He knows his job is better than anybody. He's been doing it for a long time. I was quite surprised that he didn't try to use his craft to affect the game in some way, as it did not start the way it was anticipated, and they were behind the 8 ball the entire game, and there was no sniff of that from Revo. So I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, there weren't many interactions in general between those two. And I thought Reeves had a pretty good game. I think he played just under 8 minutes. Like, if you're asking me who stood out, maybe it's that fourth line. Like, Steven Lorentz, again, since day one of camp, has proven a point, made the team. I think there's a reason why he made the team and has made a difference in every game. And I think we're starting to see a bit of chemistry. But Reeves played his game, had a couple of chances. He almost scored in the second period, which is big to say of him. But he knows where to go. He knows his job, and he knows his role.
Yeah, I mean, I like Lorentz too. I think he had a couple of chances there. Revo
Yeah.
had one too, and I said a couple of days ago, if that line can play that 8-9 minutes, like just under the 10-minute mark, and if they can be reliable as far as getting the puck out of their end, keeping things to the outside, making the right plays, the chip off the wall, the direction to the center support, and just getting it out and not getting peppered or hemmed in your zone. And then if you can actually cook a little bit in the ozone, first of all, chase it down and bang their D-man and have them turn it over, and then get any semblance of offense going, or just an ozone shift, is huge for a fourth line, right? That's what you need. Couple bang and crash, a little bit of energy, keep it out of your zone, get it in their zone, get an ozone face off, get the hell off, tap on the pads. Good job. Get Matthews out there for that draw. Like, that's what you're looking for. And I think Lorentz so far has been a nice addition. Lots left to see, obviously, but his attitude is absolutely in the right place. He knows where his role is. He's not, wanting to climb up the ranks and play on the third and second line and all this. He understands he needs to be an energy player and play on that fourth line, and he's passionate about it and super happy to be here. So that's all you can ask. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it all summer. There's reason to believe this is a more well-rounded team than they've had in a while, and it's just a matter of putting those pieces together. And again, it comes down to the big boys. Like, everyone else is going to do their job. I think Tanev, we haven't talked about. I mean, it's nice to have that rock solidarity in the background there. It's like, fuck, he looks solid. He looks poised. He looks so confident. He knows what he's doing. He just looks like a beast back there. And these additions are going to help the team. But again, those big boys on the power play and with the offensive zone chances, you have to bury. You have to do your job. And they put up lots of points and everything. It just doesn't seem like it comes from a consistent place that's reliable. It seems like every day they're kind of, I don't know, hoping to get it done, and they often do because they're so skilled, but it seems fragile, and the wheels kind of fall off and it falls apart, and everyone's looking at each other going, what the hell's going on? Like, why isn't this working? And it looked like that last night, and it looks like that almost every playoff game.
Empty calories, I call that. Like, a friend told me Mitch Marner was really effective. He had 6 shots on goal. I'm like, I barely noticed the guy. But you could say the same about the entire nucleus. Like, Nylander, I thought was very perimeter. It wasn't Matthews' best game. I thought John Tavares looked slow. Like, the big boys, it was weird, but it wasn't a great night for those guys.
No, it didn't really. Mitchie had a couple chances. Like,
Yeah.
man, sometimes he is guilty of just not shooting the pill. Like, there was that one, I think it was the first period, and he's going down. It's kind of a rush, and he had the room and had the lane, and he was so committed to the pass that it was like you could have timed it with a calendar, and he just forced the pass, and it completely missed and ended up in the corner. It's like, man, I mean, you got to read and react. Like, you're so highly skilled. Your shot and your release, your ability to pick a corner. I mean, and you're just absolutely like telegraphing pass, and then you still force it. Like, usually you do that and then just wire one short side, like he's very capable of. And it was in the third period, he had a wrap around, and it was like, just turn your blade, you wrap it around, you tuck it. It was an empty net, and he was totally committed to throwing it up to the guy coming down Broadway. And he just kind of gets a little bit tunnel vision sometimes, where you're like, God, Mitch, like, it was there. And trust me, it's very easy to play up in the from the TV and from the press box. You can watch, everything looks so bloody easy. Anyone could be Gretzky. But you just, on a game like that, you get the chances. You're only going to get a handful of them. Those guys got to bury. Simple as that. I'm sorry. Like, I
Yeah.
wasn't that guy. I'm not expected to do that. I can't do that. But you are that guy, and you are paid to do that, and you are expected to do that. And you got to bury your chances, man. Like, you just can't get shut out on opening night.
Execution, it comes down to that. Craig Berube said it in his post-game remarks. Oftentimes, I mean, you want to get paid like the man, you have to pull through in moments like that. Again, I'm not going to break it too down. It's game one of the season, but there's reasons why McKinnon and McDavid and all those guys are paid that money to score when it matters most, and they just couldn't solve the Montreal Canadiens and Samuel Montembeault in the season opener. One guy really stood out for me, Rosie, is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I like the way he activated on the back end. But for the life of me, I'm still trying to figure out what he was trying to do on that breakaway out of the box. Like, it was like a Kobe Bryant / Michael Jordan fadeaway, but maybe he felt the back pressure. There wasn't a guy within like 5 feet of him out of the box, and he was like skating into the corner.
Well, he kind of loses balance here, like stud.
It's wild, right?
That's that's not a good look. Like, did he just choke? I mean, that's just what it looks like, just completely choking and panicking and not being whatsoever prepared for that. I mean, that's a guy that's led defensemen in goals. I mean, he is more offensive than anyone watching this show right now, but he kind of stutter stepped and then like panicked and then kind of skated off to a weird angle. And then as he's kind of skating away, kind of shoots this little fadeaway snapper. The goalie was probably like, what the hell was that? But yeah, whatever. Chalk it up to opening night jitters, I guess.
Imagine he scored on that.
Oh, it would
And
be.
thanks
There's
to
just
Sportsnet for the video. But imagine he scored on that. That would have been even funnier. But all I could think of, maybe he tripped or the back pressure behind him, because he was coming out of the box. But he had so much time. Like, make a move. It's like he just put it into the chest of Montembeault and got off. It was weird.
it was quite weird, and there's no one around him. And he kind of like lost his balance a little bit, did a little stutter before, so maybe he was just panicked. He was going to get his pocket picked, but yeah, I can imagine skating by the bench. The guys on the other team were going to be like, "How did that stay out?" And give it to him a little bit. That would have been good for a chuckle in that league, but whatever. It is what it is. Jitters.
Is there a guy from your playing days where every time you played, you just gave it to him? It didn't matter where it was, when it was, the score was just the guy you just laid into all the time?
I wouldn't say I pick anyone out in particular. There's guys that love to chirp. Steve Ott would chirp like crazy. Dubinsky was such a prick out there. I would love to fight Dubinsky and just feed him everything I humanly have. He just run his arrogant little cocky mouth all the time, which would piss you off. But I try to get in Crosby and Malkin's ears a little bit. They got the ear guards in their helmet. And I would chirp him about those. Like, got to protect those ears, man. Those are nice looking ears. Like, where do you even get ear guards from? The helmets don't even come with ear guards. So I always chuckled and wondered why it looks like beer league out there with the ear guards. But other than that, I mean, I tried to play my game. Anyone could chirp me and say, enjoy fantasy camp. Make sure you're not in the minors next week and shit like that, which is gets a little bit old. But no, I just try to stick to my game mostly.
All the same crap for sure. Discipline issues were front and center. Craig Berube said it in his post-game remarks. I felt the same way. It's always opening night. This playing the game. I think the refs want to set a precedence for the season. I thought Suzuki sort of embellished on that one, but very ill-advised penalties. It looked like a team that was trying to prove a point to a new coach, man.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think you just chalk it up to a night where maybe you weren't. I mean, that McCabe one, you're going back, you're trying to get a stick on the puck.
Yeah.
The guy's on both of his edges turning, and just a little stick on that one edge. The one skate's going to come off its edge. It's going to pop the other one off the edge. You're going down. It looks horrible. It's a skate right in a stick with a direct trip. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And yeah, it sucked the life out of the first two shifts they had. I was like, oh my God, are we ever, like, we were absolutely buzzing. Like, we almost had a goal off right first shift and followed up second shift. And it was just like bang, bang, bang. They were on their heels. I was just like, my God, is magic going to happen this year? And then you run into penalty troubles, and penalties suck the life out of the momentum, sucks the life out of the intensity. Like, I can't stand how many penalties they call this day and age. Like a good example, that Suzuki one, OEL goes and gives him a little shot, like right here. As a defenseman with the guy coming down, you can hit him with your hand right here, but he's got his stick in his hand and it's up here, and then you like this, and the arm comes up. It's unfortunate. I wish they would call less. That intensity of the games that used to get like back and forth. Oh my God, was so great to watch. Now every time you get a semblance of that, tweet, everything stop. TV timeout. Let's go to a 5-on-4 and watch them move it around the umbrella. I don't find it exciting. I don't like it. I'm certainly not going to change anything at this point. They've been going that direction for a long time, but you'd think they could start like maybe letting the guys play. The whole MO forever since that 05 lockout was, opening the game up, opening scoring up. They used to find it too boring. They want to get American viewers. The scoring, like these 2-1 games, aren't very exciting. You want to let these guys show their skill and this catching and grabbing and hooking and holding. They've completely abolished it. Fine. You've done that. The scoring is up at the 80s level now. Can you let these guys play a little bit and try to put the whistles away? Like, I'm not talking about headshots or guys getting hurt or hitting from behind. I'm just talking about the ticky-tacky little touch on the arms and throw the head back and the arm goes up. I would love to see that shit go away. I think it takes away from the game, but I'm getting off track.
I couldn't agree more. A lot of ticky-tack stuff is called early on in the season. It felt that way last night, but the Leafs have to find a way to stay out of the box. And it's funny how things work out. One power play goal is the only goal scored in that game via Cole Caulfield. The Leafs lose the season opener. Joseph Woll didn't play, as we know, and we sort of speculated there's no way he's coming back on Thursday. He is not. He's going to be out at least until next Wednesday against Los Angeles, placed on injured reserve, Rosie.
Yeah, pretty tough way to start the morning yesterday. I mean, we addressed it. When that's your number one concern, you give the guy an extension, you kind of put, the team in his hands as far as the crease is concerned. And everyone kind of talks about this guy's mental fortitude and his athleticism and his ability and the way he can be a premier goalie here. But there's this little caveat that, he tends to be injury prone. Okay, well, let's see how the season goes. We can put together some big batches of time here where he's working on his thing and he's the guy, and we can't even drop the puck and he's hurt before game one. I mean, could there be a worse start? Could there be a worse sign? Could there be a worse indication that maybe our fear is real? I mean, it's not like it's guaranteed to be that way, but you could not start on a worse note, in my opinion. Like, you don't even drop the puck on game one. You're like, that's insane. So, and I'm sure no one's more frustrated by it than Joseph Woll, but I mean, you just got to hope for some luck for this guy. Get him help. I mean, that's what we talked about all summer. Well, he's going to be healthy. He's going to come in. That year is behind him. Come in with a fully clear medical sheet and be completely healthy. And let's see if you can cook and make a name and plant your stake in this league. No, won't even play the first 3-4 games. Like, fuck, man, that is just the worst start you could ask for a guy whose only question mark is staying healthy.
Yeah, and you wonder how the players feel, right? When you have a guy in there that you just can't rely upon. And we'll see what happens over the coming weeks. I would just love to see some stability from Joseph Woll. And I mean, it's not his fault. He just can't stay healthy. Keep those super chats coming. Hank Gibbs, thank you so much for the super chat. How comfortable are you with Hildeby, Rosie, is the question. There seems to be some reluctance to play Hildeby, and no confirmation he's going to make his debut tonight, by the way.
Well, people keep asking me, what do I think of Hildeby? Like, he has never played in the NHL. Like, what? I mean,
Watch the Marlies, bro.
so well, sorry, that doesn't matter. I mean, lots of guys have success at that level and can't in the NHL. I mean, he seems, by all accounts, I mean, to have potential and to be a pretty good goalie, and he's big. And I don't know the first thing about him. I don't know if he's mentally weak or if he's mentally soft or if he's an absolute pin upstairs and he's hyper focused and a pure professional and diligent in all of his work and a student of the game. I don't know anything about him. Get him in 10 games, 15 games, and see how he reacts, see where his positioning is, see how calm he is, how confident he looks, his athleticism, see his second efforts. Like, then I can have an opinion, but I don't know the first thing about the guy. So it's nice to have a guy where there's potential to go to, and he's there and he's ready. It's better than having nobody and being like, we can't call that guy up. He's getting lit up in the American League for years on end. It's a better problem. It's not a problem. It's better to have this than that. But I can't make an opinion on Hildeby until he, does something in the NHL and gets some time and opportunity, which looks like this year there's a good chance he will.
Meantime, in his latest 32 Thoughts written submission, Elliot Friedman said the Leafs are working to find a landing spot for Timothy Liljegren. I think the
Yeah.
writing is on the wall, Rosie, and I think it's time to move on. How do you feel about Liljegren?
Well, I just think they're going to have to do some cap maneuvering here. They've got guys on IR and LTIR, and you're going to have to activate them here sooner than later. And they're players that are more important than Timothy Liljegren, and he makes a decent chunk of dough, probably more than he should. So therefore, he's going to be the odd man out to say, well, we're going to probably want this guy out anyway. Plus, he gives us a bunch of cap relief. You'd want to unload him. I just think it's difficult to find a suitor for him. Like, he is a right-handed shot defenseman, which seems like everyone and their dog is looking for that kind of guy at any point in the year. So the Leafs have that going for them. But to make that amount of money and to be kind of a wishy-washy, mistake-prone defenseman, kind of tough to find a suitor. And then they have to not only take him off your hands, but give up, third-round draft pick as well for him. I don't think that's something you can just snap your fingers and make happen. But again, right-handed shooting defenseman with, fair amount of youth on his side and, potential upside in a different market. Maybe they find a suitor. I think that would help them out to unload him. But yeah, it seems like, I got nothing against him. He just hasn't played his way into being solidified in that spot. And we'll see, man. I don't know if Timmins or the other guys are going to get it done. I think they're looking for a guy in that on that right side for the third pairing. And right now that's nowhere written in stone.
I just think he doesn't fit the bill of what this team is looking to do on the blue line. Having said that, it just takes one team to want to think or believe they can change or find an elevated version of Timothy Liljegren. The 2-year contract, what is it, $3 million per season with the salary cap going up? I think there's going to be a team that bites, but ultimately, if the Leafs are looking for value and they're not trading from a position of strength, everybody around the league knows that Liljegren has played out of favor under Craig Berube. He's maybe the 7th defenseman right now. Phil Myers had a really good camp. So I think it's a tough one to do. Maybe patience is a virtue. Maybe they wait this out to see what happens with Yanni Hakanpää. Who's to say Liljegren can't get back in the lineup and prove his worth a bit more? But I do see a scenario where Liljegren is traded out. If they can't trade him, I think he hits the waiver wire. But it just takes one team to believe that a guy who shoots right. Again, you mentioned it. So many teams around the league always looking for a right-handed shooting defenseman think this guy can make a difference on their roster.
Yeah, you'll just need a team who's desperate for a right-handed shooting defenseman with some experience, right? Who's not 38 years old. I think that's what it takes, and they're going to have cap room, man. You got to take on that salary, and I don't scrounge the league, and I don't go to the cap sites and dissect everyone's cap situations, but it seems to be a tough time of year where guys are all trying to get under the cap. guys are trying to like maneuver their roster just to get what they have, compliant. So I just think it's gonna be tough to take on a $3 million guy that isn't. I don't think he's up to the snuff of the other $3 million defenseman in the league, to be honest.
Fair enough. Are you ready for Keefe versus Chief?
Yeah.
It's the second half of the back-to-back. I like that for the Leafs, especially coming off a game where you get shut out for the first time since what, like November of 2020 or 21. Like, it's been a long time. And so you get Sheldon Keefe. No confirmation on the lineup. We'll see on that front. There's speculation. Maybe Dennis Hildeby makes his debut. But they also said Craig Berube in his post-game remarks that they could think about Anthony Stolarz the way he played in the opener. I just didn't think it would make much sense. But New Jersey's a tough team. They're 2-0, had a good start against Buffalo overseas, but I'm hoping that there's a bit of rust considering they haven't played in a while and coming back to this time zone as well.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm interested to see what the Leafs look like, man. If they can have a response and try to put something together and have a game that goes in their favor. I'm not against playing Stoli 2 games in a row. Like, I never was. Men have done it for decades and decades, and now all of a sudden it's like too much to take. I don't really understand why.
Yeah.
I get that the risk of if Stoli goes down, then your foreseeable future is in a guy that doesn't have a single NHL game. That would be a good way to test out Hildeby, but we'll see, man. It's not like it's a must win or anything, but it would sure be a tough first week for the Toronto Maple Leafs to drop this one as well with the Keefe angle as well, and we'll see who they go with in net. That's kind of what I'm waiting for first and foremost, and then after that, it's just response. Like, can you put something together? Can you work on your power play? Can you guys figure out together like what feels wrong, what feels off, why you can't get any chem going? What's worked in the past with all your careers that isn't happening now, and try to come together and talk to each other and get some chemistry and get a relationship going on that power play to find something that actually works. And we'll see, man. It sure as hell didn't look up to snuff last night.
Lineup changes, just speculation from David Alter saying Reeves, Myers, Liljegren, and Hildeby are on the ice for the morning skate. It's the back-to-back, so you're not going to see the full team. McMahon's not on the ice, suggesting McMahon for Reeves may be the only change tonight. So if you wanted to see McDermott against Reeves, I don't know if it's going to happen tonight. It makes sense. I mean, the guy's, 37, 38. I think if you want to have a high offensive lineup, McMahon goes back in there and Reeves comes out. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, I was wondering. I mean, when I played, for the Flyers there under Craig Berube, and it started off the season with Peter Laviolette, and he said he was going to play me every single game. He liked having a guy like me in. The Stars, Voracek, Giroux, these guys like having me in. So I wasn't going to deal with what I dealt with in Toronto by being scratched, being in another one, being scratched for 3, being in 1, scratched for 2 more. Like, fuck, it was a yo-yo. And in Philadelphia, I was like, here we go. A coach that wants me in every night. I can actually get some reps and get comfortable and find get on a rail there and find a rut that you can work in. And then boom, 3 games into the season, Laviolette gets fired. In comes Craig Berube. So I was pretty pumped. He played the same role as me. I'm like, good, he'll at least value me, but he played me like 35 games that year. So he's not scared to take his tough guy out. That was back in the day. This is even, 10, 12 years later. So I do see Reeves coming out of the lineup a fair amount. Like, if last night they needed some energy, needed some momentum, needed some penetration, to have a Bobby McMahon in there who's chomping at the bit to stay in the lineup, you'd think he'd be absolutely buzzing and banging everything out there. And again, going back to Revo, I mean, if in the first period when they scored, if he went and found Jack Guy and had a big scrap and, jacked everybody up and they had a response afterwards, you'd think he'd be in the lineup tonight, but there's a good chance he'll be out. And because what? He just wasn't, I'm not saying you got to fight to stay in the lineup, but that was tailor-made game for a guy to try to use that skill set to affect the game. And he just chose not to do it.
That's the proper way, I think, to deploy a Ryan Reeves, quite frankly. And that's what I think a lot of people were asking for last season. I don't think you want to see him every game, but you pick your spots. Like, I think depending on opponent, like if Arbor Jack Guy's in the lineup, it would make a lot of sense to play a Ryan Reeves. But along those lines I mentioned earlier, I don't think he was like a negative. Like, I don't think he was a detriment to the team last night, similar to like maybe the first couple games last year where he got off to that atrocious start. I think if he proves that he can be consistent and not be a liability on the ice, I think it's a win for this team.
Yeah, he's a tool that you can use, right? And I mean, the last thing you want to do is get into a game where you're getting run out of the building physically and you're getting, embarrassed, and a guy's taking advantage of every single guy on your roster every single chance he gets, and your team has no response for it. It's degrading, and it's brutal. And every team, I think, now with some guys that, like a Jack guy who plays that way. I mean, there wasn't a lot of guys that are willing to do that. And there was a period of time in the NHL through the mid 2010s where, none of that was happening. No one seemed value in that. No player was willing to play that way, or understood that side of the game. And now that it's coming back, I mean, yeah, you want to have a guy that can make sure that stuff stays to a minimum. And yeah, they'll probably pick their spots looking at their opponent saying, are we in jeopardy of that happening tonight? And if so, we'll activate Ryan Reeves. Otherwise, I also don't think he needs to be in the lineup every single night.
Speaking of Jack Eye, how sick are those new CCM skates, man? They look like the
Yeah.
tax back in the day. Like I was watching Austin Matthews out there. I'm like, something looks different. He's wearing the new CCMs.
I know that I just it screams Mike Modano to me, where he had
Yeah.
those tacks that came right up the side. I think those were beautiful. Who was it? It might have been Modano, where I think he had like 30 pairs of skates from the factory because they stopped making them, and he heard of that, so he got an absolute warehouse full of them for the rest of his career. But those are the wickedest looking skates with that.
Oh,
It's just a simple white triangle coming up to the eyelid. And yeah,
unreal.
I noticed it on Matthews first,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, those look like old school tacks, which I love throwbacks like that. They look awesome, and it's a little nod to some cool eras.
I would love the Fedorovs to come back, the Nikes and the Bauer Vapors, the ones Pavel Bure used to wear. Those are nasty, man.
Yeah. What were the like Vapor 10s were
Yeah.
pretty old school, and very cool. But again, like you say, you can watch from the broadcast feed and you can see those tacks from way up there. Other than that,
I
you don't have
know.
a clue what kind of skates guys are wearing. But that tack with the white on the side, Matthews, Jack Eye, I love that shit.
Very sexy stuff. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Anything specific you're looking at tonight? Obviously, nothing hit for us yesterday. The Pacioretty shot prop didn't even hit. It was a tough night at the office to bet on the Maple Leafs. Just for context, by the way, Leafs and the Devils, Toronto at 1-2-0 against New Jersey last year. 27 goals scored in the 3 outings last year. What do you expect? A high-scoring game or a low-scoring game?
Well, it's been a low scoring affair last night. Looking at the lines here. Whoo.
I'm just going to say it. I like the Leafs. I
I
like
just
the bounce back.
Leafs plus 115, man. You got some value, a bounce back. To be the underdog, I think they do better in that role than they do um being having high expectations on them. I mean, their whole life is having high expectations on them, and kind of coming up short and not performing when that's the case. So I expect a bounce back from last night. I'm interested to see who the goaltender is tonight.
Yeah, there's been no confirmation. I assume at 5 o'clock when Craig Berube speaks, we'll find out more. But there just seems to be an organizational reluctance to play Dennis Hildeby. I don't know
I
why
know.
that is. He played in the preseason. I thought he looked good. I think it would add another layer to see Hildeby play and make his debut against Sheldon Keefe, who had the opportunity last year to play him and did not play him. Remember?
Yeah, big time. I thought they had every opportunity in the world, and they were dead set against it. I thought they would do it on that West Coast trip. I think they had a shot against San Jose. I'm like, why wouldn't you give this kid his shot? Like, you're probably going to need him down the road if you have injury prone goaltenders. I don't think tonight's the night, man. Against the Devils, back to back after. I mean, if they put Hildeby in and he doesn't, have the game that he wants to have and kind of flounders, and they drop another one, that's a nightmare week for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I would stick with Stoli. He looks hot in his last 2 outings. I think he's feeling it. I would talk to him personally saying, are you feeling sore? Are you feeling like you got a hell of a workout last night? Or if he's like, no, I feel totally normal, then put him back in, try to get a W. But I think there's got to be a time to get Hildeby in here, because you're going to need him inevitably at some point in time. Try to find an opportunity where it's a nice, easy game where you can just give him his first game and get some confidence under his belt.
Yeah, certainly. And I think it's intriguing to see how the Maple Leafs come out. Like, I know it's just the second game of the season, man, but you start 0-2, gets hairy in a hurry here.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, it would be a nightmare week to start 0-2. And, you don't have your quote unquote number one goalie, but that hasn't been the reason you lost so far. I'm going to hold my bets until I see who's in net. I'll be a little bit more hesitant if it's Hildeby, simply because he's unproven. He could go in there and have the game of his life, stand on his head, and now all of a sudden he's our bona fide third stringer. But I'm going to wait to see on that. But I like the value on the Leafs, and I expect them to have a bounce back right now. I went heavy on them last night. I suck at betting. I just thought they were going to be this new team to blow the doors off them, be super excited, and they'll be showing off for Berube and see how much effort I can show you, you know? And it did not go that way. But I do like the Leafs, assuming Stoley's in net again.
Got to remember what team you're covering. Igor McJazz, thank you so much for the super chat. Plus minus and how many games there's a Rosie rant part 2. Probably like 5 games.
Hopefully many games. I just want to cruise, baby. Just cruise through the season, racking up points, getting better every single night, having this new identity, playing the right way, playing north, playing heavy, all those little Craig Berube words that you want to see out there. But I don't know. There's no team to cover like this one if you like ups and downs and feeling frustrated.
Oh, so that's what Oliver Ekman-Larsson was doing on that breakaway. Penalty, thank you so much for the super chat. Any chance we see the Leafs move on from JT in the offseason? Why I was hoping for Willie to move to center. Easier to move on. Much love from Newfoundland. Again, appreciate the super chat. I just think JT is here to stay, but again, it was evident last night. He's just not the same player. He just can't make that much of a difference as opposed to maybe a couple years back.
Yeah, he just doesn't have that snap and that ability to catch the opponent sleeping or catch them out of position. He just seems to kind of be covered a little bit more. Not to say he can't produce in a certain role, but I wouldn't be surprised if they extend him and put him into a different role where he's more suited to handle it at a few $1 million. What do you think he'd make? $3 million? It's going to be,
I don't know.
a drastic step back from 11. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, certainly. But I this year is going to tell a lot. We'll see what he's got in store. I mean, if he puts up a point per game, I would see him making still 4.5 mil, maybe even more. I just, who knows what's in his head? Who knows what he's thinking?
A point a game. Yeah, that's fair. I'm wondering if he can get there this year. We'll see how much. Again, the big boys, like you gotta produce, man. These guys gotta produce. Everyone else can do their job, but if those guys aren't putting the puck in the net, they don't have really much of a hope of doing any damage. So that's the number one MO right now in my mind.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Should mention coming up tomorrow, a very special guest. We're going to have Natalie Morris, the Leafs anthem singer, is going to hop by the show. Of course, the home opener coming up on Saturday night against Kyle Dubas's Pittsburgh Penguins, Rosie.
I know. I'm wondering about that PR team, what they've put together for a little intro and stuff. I hope it's not cheesy and gross and embarrassing.
Make my dreams come through.
Oh, dear.
Imagine.
I've been watching that hip documentary, man. Is that cool? We used to come up to 50 mission cap. I don't know if it's every single year I played for the Leafs, but unbelievably jack you up. And I'll never forget one time pregame skate at the Air Canada Center, getting a drink of water, and I'm looking at the one guy sitting in the stands like 4 rows up from the glass. He's got a toque on, and I was like, that's Gord Downie, dude.
Yeah.
And I was looking around. We had a bunch of Americans on our team at that time. I'm like, Gord Downie? And a couple guys were like, not really. I know the hip, but I don't really know. And then a couple Canadian boys were like, yeah, that is him. And he looked over, and I nodded at him, and he smiled and nodded. And I was like,
That's
yeah,
sick.
I was fanboying out. So pretty wicked to see that documentary. Off topic. But we'll see what the Leafs do tomorrow night. Or sorry, when is that game? Saturday.
It's Saturday night.
See what they do. See what they pull off. I don't know. You tweeted. You gave the Habs their due, and you said that they you like that intro.
Nobody does it like Montreal. I think the Leafs need a massive operations overhaul. That building is just tough to watch a hockey game, and it starts from the team hitting the ice. Like they got to change it up. Montreal does it really well. I know people hate the 25-minute intros. That has to get a guy going. You play for that team. You play for that crest. They got the band on the ice. They just know how to do intros. Everybody knows that.
We'll see, baby. Wait till Saturday. But until then, we got a game against the Devils tonight, and I've got high expectations once again.
Money on the board for Sheldon Keefe. We'll see if the Devils can do it, or can the Maple Leafs bounce back again. Natalie Morris on tomorrow's show. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget to visit LeafsNation.com as well. Thank you to producer Vic and Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Friday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.